Well, hello, half-sized humans. It's me, Mr. Bertosh, your incredibly handsome science teacher. And in this video, we're going to learn about the special parts or structures of plants. Pretty much anywhere you go, you are going to run into these things called plants. Well, maybe not anywhere you go, but anywhere outside that you go, unless it's like a desert or Antarctica, which actually is a desert, you're going to find these green things that are sprouting up everywhere and that are called plants. And plants have a lot of structures in common with each other, but they have some unique structures as well that are specific to that type of plant. So what are some things that all plants have in common? Maybe not all plants, but most plants have in common. Well, pretty much all plants, most plants, have leaves, and they are green. They have stems and roots. Many plants have flowers and seeds. Not all plants. Some plants don't have flowers or seeds, but many plants have flowers. Many plants have seeds. So there are certain predictable traits that plants have. And then there are traits that are specific only to that species or only to a few species. So let's talk about some of those things like thorns. I like roses, and I keep roses around my home. I once lived in a house where I had about 50 rose bushes that I took care of. And they're beautiful and they smell nice and they bloom all year. And one thing roses have are thorns. What do the thorns do? Are they there just to poke me, to annoy me when I'm trying to pick roses for my wife? Or do they serve? Well, that is what they do, actually. They are there to poke me and annoy me because the bush doesn't want me to pick the roses. It says, hey, I worked really hard to grow that flower, you jerk, and you're taking my flowers from me for your wife. So the rose has thorns to protect it. And so do some other plants like cacti, and this plant called nettle, and other thistle and other plants. They have Russian olive trees. Okay, so there are a lot of plants out there, but not all plants, that have thorns that give them protection. Other things that are unique, flowers. Many plants have flowers. That's a very common trait or structure, but not all plants. What do the flowers do? The flowers are designed, they are very colorful and bright, and they often smell nice. They have an alluring or attractive scent. That's why I picked roses for my wife, because she is alluring and attractive. And they attract things like insects and birds. They're like a big advertisement that says, come here, come hither, and I have nectar for you. And in the process of giving the insects and the birds nectar, they're also getting their pollen attached, and the birds and the insects are helping to spread the pollen around. So that structure helps the plant survive, flowers. So thorns help the plants by protecting them. Flowers help by helping them to spread their pollen. And pretty much you can take any plant and look at all its parts, and all of the parts have a purpose, a reason. They're not just like randomly there doing nothing. They all have a reason for existing. What do the roots do? The roots stick down in the ground, and they gather water and minerals out of the ground that the plant can use in order to build itself and sustain its processes, water and things that it needs to function. What do the leaves do? They gather sunlight. They're like big solar panels. Why are plants green? What does the green color do? It's green. The plants are green because they have this thing in them inside their cells called chlorophyll. These things, these little tiny microscopic organelles that are called chloroplasts, and the chloroplasts are filled with a pigment called chlorophyll that gathers sunlight and produces sugar. So even the green color has a purpose. And each plant lives in a particular area, and it thrives there because of the structures that it has that allow it to do well in that environment. Not all plants can grow in all environments. So, for example, I grew up in a place called Utah, and Utah is nice and hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. And we didn't have any palm trees there. Well, except in southern Utah in a town called St. George, but most places there weren't any palm trees. Why? Why aren't there palm trees in Utah? Because it's too cold. Palm trees, one of the things they need to survive is warm weather, whereas conifers are a type of tree, evergreen tree, that thrive in cold temperatures, and they can live up in the coldest and harshest environments because that's how they're adapted. They have these long pine needles that are filled with sap that keeps it's like an anti-freezing whatever you put in your car. I can't remember what it's called. Antifreeze? That doesn't sound right. Anyway, sap is like a thing that keeps the tree from freezing. How's that? And it's in its leaves, which are needle shaped, and so it can be green all year long and not have to worry about freezing. So if I take a plant that is adapted to one environment and I pluck it out and I stick it in another environment, it may or may not do so well. Cacti. We talked about thorns. Cacti also have a thick, waxy outside skin layer that keeps water from getting out of them. And this is because they live in the desert where there isn't a whole lot of water. It only rains occasionally, and then they fill up their water on the inside and they hold it in reserve and use it as they need it, and they keep it mostly from evaporating. Cacti, they are adapted to live in a place where there is not a lot of water. And but if I take a cactus and I put it in a place where there's a lot of water, like a rainforest, it's actually going to be overwhelmed and it's going to die because it doesn't want to be where there's a lot of water. That's not how it's adapted to live. That's not its correct environment. It doesn't have the adaptations, the structures, the parts, the plant parts to do well in that environment. So when you look at plants, think about what parts the plant has, what the job of those parts are, and how those parts help the plant to be successful in the place where the plant lives. Hi guys, thanks for watching my video. These rambling science videos where I go unscripted and just kind of barf up all the science knowledge out of my head are part of a series that go along with an online class that I teach, which you can sign up for if you go to handsomescienceteacher.com. I also have a whole bunch of free resources for homeschoolers. I have hundreds of articles on every topic that covers your entire science curriculum from 5th through 8th grade. I have online games and quizzes, all curated and written by this handsome guy, a science teacher with, well, three degrees, but 2 of them are in science. So it's targeted right to and directly to your science students. So sign up, subscribe to the channel, and I release lots of videos. Also, in addition to these ones, lots of little short videos that are like 2 minutes long that cover science topics. Those ones you don't get to see my handsome face, but they're still good videos and they're much more targeted, and those ones are scripted, so you don't have to hear me like you are right now going blah blah blah. The end. Subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.